to Perimenopausal Athletes and Beyond, a whole summit of incredible experts coming together to speak to us on how do we train, how do we fuel right, how do we recover well so that we can be in health and that so we can achieve our best performance. And today we have the incredible Mayke Louw. You
make me sound like a superhero, the incredible Maryke Louw.
Who is an incredible physiotherapist. She's been practicing for more than 20 years, master's degree in sports injury management specifically, and a founder of the online physio service called Sport Injury Physio, and co-founder of Treat My Achilles. And so what has been fascinating is that you came into this online environment way before COVID even happened, which is when a whole insurgent came on. But in 2014, you really came into understanding how do we work with clients in an online space? How do we understand our bodies? And I mean, we could talk to that. We're going to actually have to talk to that just in a little bit of detail. But the way that you came into really into the Treat My Achilles company is continuously seeing it with your clients. Is that correct?
Yes.
And specifically female clients.
Yeah. So the thing with I still remember feeling quite kind of lost, because as a physio, I always said, if anybody told me before I went to study physio that there is nothing like a recipe book, I would have seriously thought about doing something else, because you tend to think that, oh, I'm going to study medicine or physio and I'm going to know exactly what to do and I'm going to fix everybody. And then you realize that nobody fits the book. And then you start getting all these, you get a certain portion of people in and they follow the book and everything happens.
Yeah.
And then I just kept on having these lovely female patients in who's just not responding to anything that they should be responding to with regards to Achilles injuries. And they're just getting worse instead of better. And what's going on here? And then I remember I was still in my 30s. So menopause was not something that I was thinking about. I thought it was all about being hot at night. And then the more that I observed this, the more I realized that, wait a second, there's a trend here. It's all females who's either late 40s, early 50s. They used to be active. They love being active. Now suddenly they have all these things that's just going on with them. And then I started reading up about this and I realized that there is so much more than just hot sweats to the menopause. And we should be talking about this because this is what's happening. And I look back and I realized this is what happened to my mother, because in her 50s, she ended up getting severe osteoarthritis to the point where I sent her to 3 different rheumatologists because I did not believe them that it wasn't rheumatoid arthritis. And it turned out just to be osteoarthritis. And now that I've actually learned about the menopause, it's like, oh, and the menopause caused it. So yes, that's what piqued my interest. And then I just found that this was an area that nobody really knew about, because it's, as we know, that female bodies have not been researched that well for the last how many years.
Okay, so perfect. Let's keep diving in right there. So how, like, you've segued us perfectly. Menopause, this time of, like, why is it in menopause in which we're predisposing ourselves to specific injuries, and why is it that it makes like recovery so much harder afterwards we even have them? Like, why can't we just do the traditional, like what we've all, according to the male model, we can just do X, Y, and Z and it's going to just work out perfectly for us?
Well, maybe I should show you how ignorant I was about the menopause. I still remember I actually asked this question to somebody. I can't remember who it was, but I was a bit shocked when I learned that you don't get up. So everybody talks about going through the menopause and then you're through the menopause. So as a young person, I assumed that, oh, okay, it all recovers by the other side. I didn't realize that, oh, no. Your hormone levels just drop to rock bottom and then they stay there and you hopefully get used to it. So the problem with it is that estrogen levels affect basically all the important functions in our bodies. So if we look purely from an athlete's point of view, the things that matter to us most are our bones, our joints, our muscles, and our tendons. Now, we all pretty much know these days about how menopause affects bones. We know that your bone mineral density goes down, and there's good evidence for that. And we kind of all know, okay, weight bearing exercise and stuff like that. But the ones that nobody ever spoke about, or at least to me at that point, was that it also affects your muscle function. So there's good evidence that the menopause causes you to lose muscle bulk. It also causes you to lose muscle strength. Now, people often tend to think that muscle strength and muscle bulk goes hand in hand, but actually these two things are separate. And they're not quite sure why the muscle strength goes down regardless of the bulk yet. But there was an interesting study where they looked at twins. One twin would take hormone replacement therapy for 7 years and the other twin would not, and then how it affected them. And that's where they saw that, oh, okay, actually muscle strength is affected with that as well. What's the third thing with the muscle strength? Oh, it also messes with our ability to use fat for muscle energy. And that's why as females, we suddenly start putting on weight because we're not burning that fat as we would normally do. But then another interesting thing is that it causes muscles to get more damaged when we do exercise. Because remember, whenever we exercise, we accumulate micro damage. Now, that is absolutely normal. It's part of the process how we grow stronger, as long as our bodies can repair it. But low estrogen level causes more muscle damage than before. So it means you're doing the same workout, but you actually need more recovery time because you're getting more muscle damage.
Yeah.
But then moving on to tendons, tendons are made up mostly of collagen fibers, and estrogen is in charge of how fast collagen is broken down. So low estrogen levels, more collagen gets broken down, and also how quickly you can repair it. Low estrogen levels, it doesn't repair that quickly. So thinking again of the micro damage we get through exercise, the tendons gets more damaged. So they also then need to recover more afterwards. And then lastly, you've got your joints. And there's good evidence that actually the menopause can speed up osteoarthritis, and it can also cause dramatic inflammation in the body, which definitely is what my mum had with her.
Okay, so now
sorry, I'm just quickly going to catch my nose. It's running away.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I mean, it's good to have that summary and to really understand what is happening just generally with the lowering of estrogen, right? So we have an increase of osteoarthritis, and is it the progressive? I think that there's just a point there that there's a difference. And I know Dr. Carla Di Girolamo really emphasized in her menopause course, like have a really low threshold for identifying this, because progressive arthritis versus rheumatoid arthritis is very different. And so that's one piece of information for the listeners, is know that this is a thing.
Yes, exactly.
Right, as we age, and particularly for females.
Yes, and then, but then luckily also there's evidence that this, because this sounds like doom and gloom and should I just go lie in the bed now, which is a little bit like how I felt when I first found out about all of this. But then you start talking to people and you start reading the research and you realize that, oh no, actually, there are things we can do about this. And it's all about finding the right information. Like, for instance, I think my mother's path could have been a lot different had she actually had good information, because she had had a hysterectomy really early on, did not go on hormone replacement therapy, because at that point it was all about, oh, it's going to increase your chances of breast cancer and all of that stuff. But what the people who wrote the headlines didn't say was, oh yes, in this very specific small cohort of people, that is the case. And then finally, when she saw a rheumatologist in her 60s who said to her, stop being silly, your bone mineral density is really low, you're having a really hard time, just take the hormone replacement, it all changed around. And she actually increased her bone mineral density again, and the osteoarthritis, the flare-ups and things became a lot less.
That is in itself is fascinating, because one, that her medical advisor advised her to take it even after they're 60. So that would be one thing that is potentially, I mean, definitely go and talk to your care provider and make sure, understand the risk levels, et cetera, but that it's not just over as a possibility, period, full stop, if you are beyond 60.
It's definitely, it's all about having an individualized approach, because what he then did was he looked at all the family history, he looked at everything else that was going on, And then when you are so low risk for things that you've been made to be frightened about, look at how this is affecting your life. You can't actually exercise. So you're getting a increased cardio risk now because of all of this. Whereas and now she's back, she's exercising and everything because she can move again.
Which
so immediately,
is health is getting better. Her ability to live life fully, mentally release. Like there's so many incredible
preserving muscle strength, for instance, as well, just because she can go for walks and things again.
Right. Okay. So coming back to the steps that we can take. Okay. So one is open up the toolbox and see what is available, including potentially hormone therapy as an option, according to whatever all your personal history. Okay. We're talking a lot about Achilles and tendons and ligaments. So just take some collagen. I'm being a little bit,
no,
being a little bit crass here, but like, where's my just silver bullet? Do I need anything else? No, just take some collagen. All right, sorted. But let's dive into this.
They obviously have done studies where they looked at that. Yeah. But unfortunately for you, the results of those studies were like, kind of maybe there's a little bit of an effect, but actually the best treatment for those type of injuries is still load management and a careful loading program. Now, let's think about all of this. So you've got the injury. Now you're in a situation where you can't produce the stuff that you need to produce as quickly as possible. So as you would normally do, the collagen fibers, you can still produce them. It just takes longer. And everything you're used to just flares you up. So what do you do in that situation? Well, the biggest shift in one's mind that you've got to make when you've been an active person is to understand that your reality of what is a large volume of training or a hard session needs to go out the window. You need to forget all of that because you need to first establish what your tendons and your body can do today. And then we're going to use that as a baseline and slowly build from that. Because if you get it at the right level, then you can allow everything to settle down and everything to move forward. Now, what this means in reality is usually what we need to do is we need to figure out what can you do at this point without increasing your symptoms too much. And it may be that if you're a runner, perhaps you should stop running for a little bit, but you can cross train and you can keep fit and you can do all these, because we've got to remember all the benefits of exercise. There's evidence there that the menopause, the muscle strength and things you lose, if you do strength training, you can regain a lot of it. You still lose some, but that's normal aging, but you can regain a lot of that. It also strengthens your tendons. There's also, if you do strength training, it strengthens your bones. And the big thing is to remember, not just think as athletes who use our legs, we tend to think, right, squats and stuff like that. But you've got arms and an upper body as well. So you've got to train them as well. And again, strength training, doing weights and things is a brilliant way of actually activating all of that. And then it's really about thinking about your week and observing your body. It's feeling what you feel. When do you need to rest? When do you need to train? How can you have high load days and low load days, taking into consideration that everything needs a little bit more time than usual to recover after a high load day?
Right. Curious on progression. So we know, and thank you for Dr. Stacy Sims with the Lift Heavy Shit. We're like so many. I love what you're saying. It's like, what can your body do today? And right now, throw it out the window. I know for a lot of us, we want to come into a place of comparison, myself included. It's like, yeah, but I can do more. But should I do more? And how do we come into this idea of progression or knowing? Is it literally like trial and error a little bit of, coming into a heavy weight session? We want to load. We know we need to lift heavy to keep up that, that force, the myosin actin connection there. We understand that muscle is working differently. So we're just like, yeah, but I can lift that. And then all of a sudden, tendons, ligaments, and are not reacting in the same way that they used to. And I'm just like, oh, darn it. Like, because I can do more. But I'm finding that, as I go through this, it's just like, yeah, but how do we come into this understanding of I want to keep loading. I realize I'm in a beautiful like
Yeah.
window of like do everything you possibly can, because when I do lose my, menstrual cycle entirely, then it's just going to be that much harder. So I'm like giving her, and yeah, no, not quite working out the way that I thought it might. Can you speak to that progression and understanding a little bit more and the nuance of that?
First of all, that line of thought is really, really common. And if I can figure out how to break it even in myself, that would make life much easier. But yes. So here's the thing. We have to become really good at observing our bodies. Now, what are signs that our bodies aren't coping with what's happening? Well, one is if you're still feeling a little bit niggly or achy from the previous session you did, you've likely not recovered enough yet. Because if you still can feel something that's not recovered, that's quite a good sign there. Then also something that I picked up in my patients is often if they come with a tendinopathy or something, there would be a history of them having had tight calves for quite a long time that just would not let go. And then they go, oh, I think it's because they're so tight that I got the tendinopathy. But it's like, no, those poor muscles were overworked. And all that stretching you did and all the massages you went for, the reason that didn't actually do anything was because you weren't allowing the recovery. So those are really good signs that actually I need to be taking it easier. To be honest, there are two scenarios to think about when we think about how heavy can you lift. The one is where you are actually injured, and the other one is where you're not injured. And it is a bit of trial and error. And we've got to remember that things like tendons specifically has a delayed pain response. So what you feel in that session is a very bad indication of how you're going to feel tomorrow. So it's always worth checking that delayed response. Now, with the menopause and how that sets in, it's never like today I'm fine and tomorrow I'm dead. There are usually warning signs that builds up to it. So it's about getting those first. Now, say for instance, you've been injured and you've got it all calmed down and you want to go back, but you're not sure what to do with. I am very much a fan of doing a silly, ridiculous light session first. You've got to kind of be embarrassed. If your peers are going to see you doing this, you've got to go, oh my word, I'm doing it in the middle of the night because I don't want anybody I know to see me do this. Then it's light enough. Because the thing is, if you do that, 24 hours later, you're absolutely fine. The next session you can go, you'll have a good idea of how much higher you can go. Now, don't go and triple that. Just if it was really, really super easy, perhaps double it. But small steps up, because it's much easier to take 3 weeks to progress and find your limit than if you go in 2 sessions, overdo it, and now you've got to take 3 weeks off and not do anything because you've gone and flared it up. So taking that patience at the beginning and really starting with super light and progressing is it's a better thing for your mental capacity as well, because there's nothing worse than an injury flaring up to just feel down in the dumps and then give up on everything.
And I guess you're not I guess you're not saying do super light and then many reps.
Oh my word, you are such an endurance athlete. No.
That's not what you're talking about. You see, like I come at this so honestly, right?
I have never taken you on as a patient, or if I have, I'm checking up on you. What are you doing? So no, definitely not. So you're thinking of my ideal workout plan would be 3 sets of 10 of this exercise, that exercise, this thing. And if you have quite a big repertoire, you may even try just a few different exercises and start with the ones that's least likely to aggravate it. But you never go above the 3 times 10 reps that you're working, because you want to find that weight that you can do at that level that brings about the changes you need, but won't aggravate it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's all these questions are all, really pointed because, we are, a lot of this is speaking to the athletes that are comparing to what they used to have or know what they want to be able to do or are like trying to do it right. Right. Yes. It's like, I'm supposed to lift heavy. And if I can't lift heavy, maybe I just need to do more reps. Or like we have this idea in our heads of what it's supposed to look like. So we can do it. So we can keep our strength. Yes. And I guess I have one question in this in terms of tendons and ligaments. And it's when we come into training and as a coach, with perimenopause in particular, some days you just need to let the day go. Like you just need to be like, this is just not going to be my day. I'm just not going to do the workout. I'm going to do a yoga session instead. Undone, the sympathetic nerve. I'm going to bring up the like really tap into my sympathetic nervous system. But tendons, and correct me if I'm wrong, tendons and ligaments aren't quite the same. They're not reacting to estrogen daily. It's not the same sort of swings. It's more this constant decrease that you're seeing in the estrogen gradually coming down, but with the fluctuations.
Yeah, so perhaps if we can look at what happens. So I've made a few notes here because there's a few points you've hit on there. First, before I explain that, let me just say, you mentioned, I know I've got to do heavy strength training.
Yeah.
Heavy is relative to where you are at the moment.
Right.
So it depends on what you've done in the last 4 weeks, what's heavy for you. Mm-hmm. So if you've not done anything in the last 4 weeks, get out of your head what heavy is, because heavy is it's going to be super light. Then the second thing is, if you want the best way to avoid injury in all sports, by the looks of it, is to look at your acute on chronic load. And what that is, as a coach, is if your acute load, what I'm doing today, is too high above what I've prepared my body for in the last 4 to 6 weeks, then that's where injury lives, in that bit. But now, yes, you're absolutely right. But it's not today's estrogen level that affects the tendons or the ligaments. It's that cycle we go through day after day when we do activities. So imagine this line is where my base strength, my tendons and my ligaments lie today. Now I start training and I get tired. So my strength comes down, and I stop. That's where I stop my session. So now at this point below the curve, this is where I'm meant to recover, and they regain their strength and they grow stronger. And if I allow enough recovery time, they grow stronger than before, because the body knows you want to do more, and then you're superhero and you can do more. But if you continuously train before it crosses this line, and it just has that little bit of residue of micro damage left, then every time your curve goes lower and lower and lower. And that's how an overuse injury then eventually develops. Yeah. So it's about getting that recovery bit right. And it isn't an exact science. That's why it's so important to build recovery weeks into your system. So every 4th week or something, or depending on what type of athlete you are or how well trained you are. But I find for me, for general person on the street, every 4th week, easy week, usually gets rid of all the things that are not recovered, and then you can go again.
Yeah, I love it that you brought up the acute and the chronic too, because we want to separate sometimes a little bit. It's like, okay, well, that's my intensity sessions, but then I'm going to do a 2-hour just aerobic, soul filling, lovely ride. But even that is it's a repetitive movement in which you are utilizing and it's working the tendon, the ligament, the muscles in its own way. And that's not, it's restorative to your, I feel good. I feel alive. I move my body. But we have to be really careful in that balance to see how is our body responding. So that's what I hear you really highlight.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you just speak a little bit to looking at the nuances also between form and, because we're talking a lot about the physiology of estrogen decreasing and how our muscles are changing and tendons and ligaments, but also how this idea of form comes in. And sometimes we might not necessarily see how intertwined they are with injury. So when you're doing exercises or when you're doing something, do you have a process where you're looking at those things and be like, okay, is this a perimenopause? You're shifting, even chronically shifting your body because of something else. Something else is out of alignment, and therefore you're buckling in, or I don't know. Is there anything there that we can be curious about?
To be honest, it's not necessarily for me linked to the menopause so much. What I do see is And I often end up walking like this in the shopping mall because the more people I see like that, I
Yeah.
just feel I want to straighten out. And I saw that with a friend's daughter. I saw some young pictures of her the other day, and I thought, oh my word, she was already doing that then. So the postures we take on, and so it's an interesting field, this, because if you look at the research with regards to does posture cause pain, does this, then the research kind of shows that posture isn't directly linked with pain and injuries, which we would think it should be. But then you look at the studies and you go, yeah, I'm not sure you set that up right to test it, because what I see is somebody who looks like this when they're young because they're shy, they end up being an adult who looks like this. And you know what? By their 50s, they can't actually straighten up anymore because everything's now become stiff in that position. And it's one of the big things that I get is women who will ask me about the hump there. And the hump there is not a hump that develops because of something growing. It's literally just, it's that happens, that the top vertebrae starts sticking out. So posture with regards to menopause, it becomes harder to maintain a good posture because you lose your muscle strength and things like that. And sometimes bone density can also affect that, and that can affect your sports and your things you do. But I don't necessarily see that as a big driver for the tendons specifically.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah. So it's more, this is a factor that we can look at, but more from a historical point of view and how we actually just hold our bodies. And there's this other pieces that is also coming in, but they're not linked to saying, okay, well, you're having a lot of joint pain because of like,
yeah, okay. There's actually surprisingly little evidence to support that.
Super interesting. Okay. So what are some of the things that, like, just to come back to, is things to look out for to indicate that you may need more recovery? So let's like pinpoint being like, okay, yeah, pain.
Yeah.
Tick. Okay. But are there some more other things that we should be aware of?
Well, it is that thing of, if when you sometimes think of a workout, you just don't really have the energy for it. And then you think, I think I'm lazy. I don't want, often it's not being lazy. Often it's your body telling you that you're tired and you need to do something that actually restores you. You can get super technical with heart rates and stuff like that, but I'm, again, not sure how good we can track that, and if I really trust my watch when it tells me things about heart rate.
Your watch isn't usually so accurate. So I'll help on that front. Your watch is not very accurate, but your heart rate strap is usually, but you'll know. You will know. But I mean, that's a whole other discussion.
I mean, it was telling me the other day I need to do breathing exercises after I had my coffee. I'm like, I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Oh, don't you love it when our gadgets are telling us all sorts of things and you're just like, yeah, I'll make sure that happens maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. But for me, the things that I constantly hear from my patients before they end up having tendinopathies is that thing of, I keep on stretching, but it's not letting go. Can you really dig your elbow or something in? And then when you listen to them, you go, doesn't matter if you go for massages, it's not something that can get massaged out. You need recovery because this is not going. And then the other one is definitely, if you feel a niggle when you're doing your sport, and that, I mean, we all get niggles, and especially if you run, you'll have a niggle in the knee, you'll have a niggle in your bum, you'll have a niggle in your neck, and then it's just, but if you constantly have the same niggle and you start noticing it session after session, that's usually a sign that that thing needs some sort of attention, and likely it may be that you need a bit more recovery or something in your training is not quite going right.
And when you say, okay, so really pay attention there. Don't, I guess it's really fascinating because we do often, and, my athletes too are just like, oh, okay, well, what do I feel this. And then, as a coach and reading in comments, it's like, okay, so it's a judgment of like, okay, how are you feeling the next day? And is it still present? And is this going to be a 1 day, a 3 day, a 5 day? Like how far have you avoided to make something into the comments? That's number one.
Yes.
For athletes that are, trying to understand how do we actually really kind of go, oh, if I address this now, if I give myself the rest now, maybe tomorrow I'll have an amazing session.
Yes. So that first thing in the morning thing for tendons, especially the Achilles tendon, first thing in the morning is the telltale sign. If you wake up, you think, oh, my Achilles feels a bit stiff, but then 3-4 steps and you don't feel it anymore. You think, oh, okay, that was nothing. If that happens a few days in a row, that is something you need to look out for, because that is the first thing that happens with the Achilles tendon that's starting to be annoyed. And that isn't a tight Achilles tendon. That is the Achilles tendon that's tight and stiff because it's got something in there that's not happy with life and it needs to recover. So if an athlete, it's fine to wake up one day with an Achilles that's a bit iffy. But if that happens several mornings in a row or several times in a week, then you need to start paying attention. And I think if you take time out then and just reduce your load, you don't have to stop all your running and things. You just need to bring it down a bit and perhaps cross-train a bit with it. That's when you can really make a difference. And for hips, for the gluteal tendons, it's at night. Sleeping is the biggest thing. That if you're really uncomfortable in bed and suddenly a bed that hasn't been bothering you, now you're not sure if mattress, no mattress you try is really good enough, that type of thing. It's not the mattress. It's usually the hips saying, oh, we're just not 100% happy with what's going on.
Amazing. Okay. So for all my, very invested to, if I don't do something, I'm not going to feel, I don't have my stress release kind of athletes. Movement is also healing and recovery.
Absolutely.
And part of that is, but ensuring that you're not dipping below. So I loved your analogy of the line, like the lines, and really trying to give yourself that time to get all the way back up. And if we don't reduce the load, being either the actual heaviness or the volume.
Yes.
And both.
Yeah, but you can also be quite specific with that. So if we think Achilles again, you can still knock out a really hard session in the gym with core work, with even leg strength work, as long as you don't do things that loads the calf muscles. So you can really work yourself hard, but the Achilles is actually having a rest. It may be as simple as even just lifting the feet up into shoes that has a bit of a heel. So a trainer with a bit of a heel raise in it, that you can do your strength training and things pain-free, but you're not going to do lots of calf raises because your calf's already knackered. Or you can go into the pool and have a really good swim session. So it's about finding, and that's one thing that, because all the therapists who works in our online practice are people who like being active. So we know we hate not being active. So it's one of the things that especially a coach can help with as well, that you figure out what can you do. Okay, we know the things that you can't do, but it's only your Achilles tendon that's sore. The rest of your body is absolutely fine. So the problem comes in when you have runners who like to run and nothing else. So I love triathletes because there's always something else. But if you have somebody who just likes running and hates the pool or hates a bike, then it becomes harder. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. How do you, and I hope that this question comes out right. When you're speaking specifically to tendons and ligaments, aren't you? Or when we think about other injury, okay, my IT band, let's use IT band or something. It's really sore. It's really like it's coming right across, and it hurts. And so, this is a common. And it may be a hip flexor, like we might actually be needing to work on something else. So when we think or choose other activities, I'm trying to say, like, maybe we need to make sure we can actually pinpoint that this is a Achilles tendon issue
Yes.
that needs recovery, or because the
Yes.
body's so connected. So what's going on in, your ilios, your psoas might be affecting something else in your glute. And so we got to be really careful when we choose. It's like, oh, well, I'm just not going to work that area. Well, that's kind of connected to everything else. So,
Yeah. So
how do we first, then the step to understanding that we need more recovery is to really be working with a provider that can pinpoint and help us understand and differentiate as well. And that's probably something that you do in an online, kind of identifying, because sometimes we don't always know the questions to ask, and sometimes we don't understand how the interconnection between our body, like between muscles and ligaments, and what's pulling on what, and why is it that my calves are so tight if my hamstrings are tight, or what, whatever.
Absolutely, yes. Well, and that's a big thing, is if you look at any injury under the sun, there's not just one thing that causes it. There's a whole horde of things that can cause it. And just because there's so many things, it doesn't mean that all of that apply to you. Now, if I strengthen and really try and strengthen you up as much as I can, but actually lack of strength wasn't your issue, it was something else you were doing. I remember one person I saw, this was actually years back before we started the website, and he kept on saying how bad the physios were because they weren't helping his Achilles. And in the end, he threw his crappy running shoes away that was digging into his Achilles, and his Achilles pain went. So it's about not missing the things that's obvious. And sometimes it's not even a complicated thing that needs to change for the issue to be better.
That's such a perfect example. It's one of the things that I love to think about and actually employ, is this idea of like, how do we as every practitioner has a challenge of being in a silo of expertise, because they want to go directly to this. And having just been participated in the Female Athlete Conference earlier this year, it was really apparent that was one of the biggest take homes, is like, don't put your blinders on to your own profession, because you're going to miss the old running shoes. You're going to miss the lack, the low energy availability issue. You're going to miss something that, yes, we are in perimenopause or we're in menopause. Yes, it could be an estrogen, but there are a myriad of other factors that we also want to consider. And when it comes to, I think, what's fascinating about what you're pointing to is working with somebody to see you holistically, and then knock off, really what we want to do is start like saying, no, it's not that.
Yes, exactly.
Eliminate the possibilities.
It's
not running shoes. It's not low energy availability. It's not a muscle imbalance. It's not, historical posture issues. It's actually a lack of recovery.
I mean, you just reminded me, one of the best doctors I ever worked with gave me the best advice I've ever had in my life. And what he said was, because often when somebody starts chatting to you, especially if you're like me, old and you've worked for 20 years, you've heard so many of the same things, you think, oh, I know what this is, while you're still telling me, But the biggest mistake you can make is assuming you know what it is. So he told me, never, ever trust your instincts. Put them away and test for every single thing. So go through the whole examination, ask all the questions, even if you think you're really, really sure, because quite often they pop something up that you go, oh, actually, I would have missed this because I was so sure it was this. No, totally. It needs to be all of that.
It's such an interesting and perfect point there. It's like we have this, it's almost like we've come into this space of trust your gut, or like trust what you first think, or really follow without doing the scientific method, the
due diligence
ourselves, and being really critical of, why do I believe this? Is it true? And utilizing all the resources. I love it that you bring that in. Okay. One other point that we wanted to make sure that we touched on is hormone therapy, and does it help to avoid or to treat these injuries. So I keep on getting an Achilles tendon injury. I'm sick and tired of it, or my plantar fascia just is annoying. I'm going to now investigate this. Will it help?
We're not quite sure. It's the answer, unfortunately.
Perfect.
We've got to take little bits of evidence from everywhere. Now, there is strong evidence that it can help bone mineral density. So anything to do with stress fractures or bones and things, and if you're getting repetitive stress fractures and you're making sure you're eating right and everything else is right, then that maybe your vitamin D levels is right and all of those things, that may be something to look at. Then there's suggestion of evidence that it can help you hold on to your muscle bulk for longer and help with muscle contractions. There's also evidence that it can help protect your joints for you and reduce inflammation. We don't know how much it helps recovery from injuries. The research there is mostly done on gluteal tendinopathy. But again, it's a little bit like maybe it worked, maybe it didn't work, but you look at the study they did then and you think, well, the rehab you did wasn't really exercises I would prescribe for this condition. So we can't really analyze. So there's suggestions that it might work, and definitely animal studies shows that it could work, but we don't have strong evidence in proper randomized controlled trials yet. Mm-hmm. But I will, from my own experience, observing my mother, observing other athletes, I will say if you're struggling, have a conversation with your doctor, because that is something that I would test at least.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so we've hit home on that one. I think one of the other points that I think you've brought up a couple of times is the idea of inflammation and the challenge that our body is having in that, and to really, I just want to come back to this point of really trying to be aware of all the different signs that the inflammatory process has, like it shows us and shows up as in this way. In what we're talking about, it can show up in terms of an injury and not having enough, but it's the same thing for gut health and not being able to digest. And it's the same thing for sleep. And how that could actually be part of a chronic stress, symptom of inflammation that is occurring, not being able to get rid of. And we have a sleep expert within the summit that will speak to that too, or that speaks to that. So it's fascinating to me that this is one of the biggest things that we need to continuously come back to, is understanding how that shows up in so many different ways.
And I mean, that's also why diet, what you put in your mouth, is so important, because there's definitely strong evidence that high sugar diets, all of that stuff just increases inflammation even more. So if you then have menopause plus that, you're just aggravating everything more. So having good nutritional advice is, for me, a no-brainer with this as well.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so is there anything that we have not touched on before I get to my rapid fire questions for you and we talk about your free gift? Is there any other points that you really wanted to make sure that our listeners had?
Yes. So I would say, just when we think of what training can we do and how can we adapt our training to help with all of this, then I would say strength training regularly, not overdoing it, but having 1 or 2 sessions a week can just help with everything with that. Yeah. Second is, if you're not somebody who normally cross trains, if you're just somebody who does high impact activities like running, for instance, do consider taking up low impact activities like swimming or cycling or climbing, anything like that, that doesn't actually work your body as hard as the impact from the other stuff, because that will help your recovery. And then lastly, definitely, we've already spoken about, make sure you have enough recovery. And the only way to really figure that out is observe your body.
Perfect. Super important. Okay, you've given us a ton, and you're going to give us some more here. So you have virtual physio gifts. Do you want to share a little bit about what those gifts are? Like, they're pretty cool.
Yes. So the first one is a discount code for anybody who wants to use our online physio service. Now, we run 2 online clinics. One specializes only in Achilles tendons, and the other one in all kinds of sports injuries. Now, if, like everybody else since 2014 that I've told about it, you want to know how on earth can you do this online, it's basically just like in clinic, except the difference is I actually listen properly to the patient, because you can do that better through video call. And then we do all the test movements and things in front of the video, demonstrate your exercises, get you to do them as well, so that we can see what's going on there. Our team is made up of physios who all specializes in different sports. So, and that's for high level, low level, also just people who wants to walk their dogs, really. But then the second one is even a little bit more alternative than that. Is one of my patients that I treated online was part of a tech company, and after he got better from his running injury, he said, well, can we not make an app to do this? So we've designed an app that takes you through the rehab stages, because it turns out that physio is just an algorithm. I ask you questions, and depending on what you answer and how you test, we decide what you do. So if you're more interested in do it yourself, then you can have a look. I've also got a discount code for the app. Unfortunately, the app is only available in the USA and Europe and the UK at the moment, but the online physio services for everywhere. And then I've
Canada?
also, no, not Canada yet.
Okay. So Canadian, yes. You're out of luck, but don't worry.
Sorry. But I've also created a page where I have put the most informative videos with regards to the menopause and athletes and the Achilles tendon injuries and stuff all in one place, so that people can find information more easily.
Oh, so incredibly helpful. Thank you. That's amazing. I just wanted to touch on that one point that you were making, is like this understanding of online physio. And let's one thing that I learned from another practitioner, a Pilates practitioner, is that it really actually brought out something different for their clients, and in this case, it was their clients, your case, it would be patients. And that is to really hone in in your own body and understand it at a different level than when we have somebody, pushing back. Like, you have to get into that position and feel it and know it in a different way, because guess what? When we go home with our exercises, there's nobody there.
No, exactly.
So to really come into that space and to really hear it, and then come into your own understanding within your body, and then developing a language around it, because as you said, there's such a listening for it. I think that there's something really wonderful about, and an opportunity for some people that may be in a rural area that may not have a sports focused physiotherapist, because there is a difference there. And there is a difference there, people, and to understand the bodies in a different way, and also the mentality. You can hear my mentality coming out as very athlete or athletically minded, of like, okay, yeah, but we want to do more, but we want to do this, but we want to do that. And to have somebody that's attuned to that, I think, is really helpful.
Well, I guess my pet hate is the number of people who email in who say, well, I've just paid so much for physio for 6 weeks and my sessions are now done and I'm no better. And you go, you saw a physio every second day, 6 weeks. What did they do to you or for you? And then it turns out they sat there and counted till 10 while they did their exercises. Well, I don't believe in that. I believe that you need to empower the person to actually be able to do it themselves, because that's ridiculous. Nobody gets better in 6 weeks if you've got a long-standing tendon injury.
Well, it's also interesting that a lot of and I'm not to say that like ultrasound isn't a good tool to do it in person, but there's sometimes experiences it's like, okay, here's some exercises, and then you do your ultrasound and see you later, and hopefully it'll all work out for you. So
exactly.
It's really coming into an action of movement that it sounds like that you're really trying to bring in and create it into a person's life that is so beneficial. Perfect. Okay. Are you ready for my rapid fire questions?
I am.
All right. She laughed because I literally gave her no warning on these. Okay. So what are you thankful for right now?
You know what? That I can actually run again. Because if I can tell you a little story quite quickly.
Yeah.
I did the typical thing that all my patients do, that I shout at them afterwards, is we started traveling 3 years ago, working online, went to Thailand, woo, walk around in flip-flops. all the time, 10 kilometers a day, all to start running. And of course, I knackered my feet and I got metatarsalgia, which took me a year and a half to get back to running from, because it turns out that's not something you can exercise right, because it's bone bruising basically. So yes, I'm following Garmin's 5K plan, and I'm actually starting to get a decent time again.
Oh, yay for you. Isn't that funny? Like, okay, this is just like a testament that we are all works in progress all the time. And we know a lot of things.
I'm bulletproof, don't you know?
Yeah. It's so perfect. It just reminds us that we come to these, professions and things that we do because we also come from such experience. Not doing it right. All right. What is the one thing you struggled with or learned recently that you wished you learned 10 years earlier?
You know what? That work will never be done. So I've always had this thing of, oh no, just work a little bit more today, and then if I can just get this and this and this done within like 3 hours, then it'll be, but there's always just more. So now I'm really starting to take the time and go, there's a whole lifetime, enjoy a bit more in the moment.
Yeah. I think that all the listeners will love that, and to really take that on, because in perimenopause, it's, a busy time of our lives. And in the menopause, I think in the menopause, to be honest, if you are in the beyond and a listener, you've just gotten a whole lot wiser.
Yeah.
So I'm speaking to you, all of you that are in the beyond, is that I just recognize, and we recognize the wisdom that you bring, and you're just being like, oh yeah, like, but this is the transition. So if I know for myself, if I can transition a lot earlier, I'm going to do everything I can to do that. What is a quote or saying that you live by?
Well, it's from my mum, and I remember when I was little, or when I was at school, I was very good at procrastinating. And I mean, we lived in the middle of nowhere, so she never read any of the books like Eat Your Frog or whatever that thing is of what to do today. But she always kind of went, it's still going to be tomorrow, and it's going to be worse tomorrow if you only do it tomorrow. So so if there's anything that I don't want to do, I do it as quickly as I can in the moment, and then it's done with. So yes, that's why I answer my emails so quickly.
Oh, so brilliant. So brilliant. So go, and if there's something that you're really, I love it because it's really important to remember that, like something that you're dreading and then it actually only takes 2 seconds to do.
Exactly. And it doesn't spoil your whole week.
Oh yeah, just get it done. Like I so get that. It's usually like my financial stuff. I hate doing all that business. I'm like, no. So if I just get it done, then I won't have to be worried about whether I'm keeping up with it. All right. I have so thoroughly enjoyed being with you today, and thank you for your time and your generosity. Is there I'm going to leave you with the last word. Is there anything else that you would like to say to our listeners?
That I hope we've got a way of getting depressed about the menopause, but actually we just need to start embracing it and understand that it doesn't have to hold us back if we're clever about it.
Perfect. Don't get held back. Let's just keep going. Thank you so much.